Hi there, it's Dr. JOYLYN Sparkles and welcome to your Power Hour. This is your time to put what's on your mind on my mind, and we will put our heads and hearts together and come up with a way to go from some level of stuck to happy as fuck in a short amount of time as possible, all right? For those of you who are new, why is Power Hour only a half hour? Because I've only got two settings, fire hose and off. Or sleeping. So make it a half hour so that this is actually a digestible and useful session for you so that you can get the most out of this, because my goal for the Happiness Clinic is more happiness on the planet, and I am somebody who very much values my time, and I don't like when somebody goes on and on and on and doesn't cut to the chase. And that's my gift. I'm going to cut to the chase so you get what you need. You may have to watch it a couple of times, but since it's only about a half hour, it's much easier to fit into your schedule. Now today, we are talking about something that is so up in the air. It is coming from all sides and inside of this one right here. And I've seen it, talk to a client who's struggling with it. And that's depletion, just utter exhaustion. It is what a lot of us have actually struggled with in other parts of our lives, but it was labeled depression. And there's some talk about depression as deep rest, depressed needing a need for deep rest. And what happens is, it sucks. Being depleted, being tired, being exhausted sucks. And so most of us avoid it. It's also pretty much all the time inconvenient, because it isn't just happening when we're sleeping, when we've gotten the time that everybody else has nominated as normal and good time to replete. We've been burning the candle at both ends, biting off more than we can chew, probably things, but in a way where we're trying to control things that are out of our control and trying to push things before their time. So we end up depleted, exhausted, tired, fatigued, weary, worn out, burnt out, fried, done. These are just some of the synonyms that I've heard in sessions this week. And what I've also experienced and witnessed from outside, being very much directed at me, is cruelty. Yelling and anger. Being really sharp. My mom says I get crispy. I like that word. We might know within ourselves that we're lethargic and nothing sounds good. Nothing sounds good to eat. Nothing really sounds like fun. There's nobody's company that really sounds amazing. We can't focus. And here, let me share one of the other, maybe one of the most detrimental symptoms of being worn out and burnt out that most of us aren't recognizing as a symptom, and that's self-hate. Negative thoughts, questions and doubts about our value and what we add here, why we came here, what's the good of us being here. Anything mean directed at our body, how ugly it is, how fat it is, unacceptable it may be. Wrinkles, cellulite, hairs out of place, whatever. Those are mean things. Pushing people away when you really want a hug. Eating things that you know don't make you feel good. Refusing to rest, refusing to perhaps bathe or take care of tasks that need to get done, These are symptoms of depletion that have been labeled as syndromes or the problems themselves. So we continue to try to chase and fix something that's not actually the problem, and actually ends up making the problem worse because it very much gives us something to do, something to focus on and fix, which our subconscious very much loves. And it is very sneaky because everybody else is doing it pretty much, and because it makes sense. Because we are depleted and tired to the extent that we aren't able to focus and pay attention all the way to the end of whatever thought string it is to see that it's actually a loop. And it loops onto itself. And it pulls in random details and winds them around itself and comes up with what seems like a coherent narrative because we don't have the capacity to actually have some space and look at it and question it and challenge it. And let me tell you, as one who is the master of this herself, that these narratives will involve many people. Myself, always a key player and always wrapped around my value and what good was I here on the planet and what impact am I making, and everybody else is better off without me and nobody even misses me and my feelings don't even matter. And then because, of course, I'm a creator and I'm actually believing that bullshit, that's actually what's going to get reflected to me. Okay, so this is a very unfortunate pattern. But then, because I don't live in a vacuum and other people are around and they are also imperfect and doing some of the same things, I can pull them into their narrative. And here's a really big kick in the pants. The more educated I get, the better it sounds. The more airtight this narrative becomes. It has bigger, fancier words like narcissist, narcissistic, empathic, empathetic. Oh, let's see, what are some of the other ones? Projections, illusions, delusions, bipolar. These are just some of the fancier medical terms. There's also there's the general run-of-the-mill selfish and self-centered and, let's see, unkind, mean. And we'll label other people with them, use their behavior as evidence because we don't actually have the bandwidth, the capacity to actually self-reflect and see, are we doing this all of ourselves? What is truth and what's lie? Because some of it might be based on some truth. I will tell you, one of the things that will lead to exhaustion is shitty boundaries. And that is something that I've been learning hard and fast this week. And when I talk about, and I've read about it, but you don't hardly believe it until you're living it, that when you finally grow in self-love and you hold a boundary so that you get love and you get to fill up, that some people will hate it and react to it, and sometimes violently, not necessarily meaning outwardly striking, but saying very mean things, accusing you of things that aren't actually true, withholding love, taking back things that they had given you. This has all happened to me in the last 4 days. Now, what's interesting is, as tired as I've been, some of these things were happening because I was so exhausted. I was so exhausted that I thought, putting up boundaries, I'll do that later. I don't have the capacity to do that. But it's not until we do them that we're ever going to actually fill up. There are some times where rest comes in action. There's some times where rest is rest. And it can be very difficult to know the difference. So if you get it wrong, just give yourself grace. It's hard to know. But in these struggles over the last couple of days and weeks, I have noticed that I've been really quiet. I haven't gone out a lot. I haven't reached out to people a lot. It's actually been me and my spirit team most of the time. I light a candle, I sit with my rock friends, and I pull some oracle cards. I listen to a lot of clearing things with a program, and I actually have had some coaching calls with my clients, but then also with my coach to tap in. And it's funny that my coach was like, okay, let's look at next steps. And I actually finally was the voice that said, I need more rest. I think the clarity is going to come when I'm actually rested, because my pattern is to give me a little bit of rest and then get up and go. And I had a client yesterday and I said, rest until you feel rested. It is probably more than what's going to feel comfortable. We might originally call it self-indulgent. We may slide into actual self-indulgence and laziness. That's okay, because we're not going to know what it is, the difference, and how to tell unless we actually start and do this. There is no other way out of fatigue and depletion other than rest. Blaming somebody else, an airtight narrative, finding something or someone to fix, if that someone's you. Eating. Here's another thing we'll actually do when we're really tired. I used to do this a lot. Exercise. We'll exercise more. We'll eat more. We'll do almost anything, because the feeling of tired is very unpleasant. For a lot of us, it's a level of depletion that will actually have similar resonances to helplessness or powerlessness that we have felt before and said, I'm never going to feel that again. There is a lot of culture judgment about how much you should produce and what you should be able to do and what you should be able to handle, especially at your age. But for most of us, we grew up with a deficit, so we never had the full deck. For most of us, we've been abused. Our adrenals have been going full stop, so we've been in chronic stress since the age of, some of us, conception, and I'm not kidding. 1 weekend or 2 weeks a year is not going to replete what we've done to ourselves for decades. Staying in bad relationships, including the bad relationship we have with ourselves. The mean, horrible, nasty things that we have said to ourselves from the moment we wake until the moment we sleep, and we've called it permissible. Some of us have even said, in the name of self-improvement, like the beatings will continue until morale improves. It doesn't work that way. So sometimes when I'm talking about this, and I talked about just here a second ago, that we don't have the capacity to focus because we're so tired. That if we did, we would actually see that some of our loops and narratives, our narratives and stories, are actually loops, and they just keep looping onto itself, so it doesn't ever stop. It's just going to keep going. That's what trauma does in our brain. That's how we know these things are connected. Now, it doesn't necessarily matter where it is, who it's from, how it got imprinted. We just know that it is. A lot of us, for me, knowing that it was trauma actually just started taking the judgment out of it. It wasn't something that was wrong with me. It's something that, an event that happened at a particular time that was able to imprint onto my nervous system. And because it got imprinted, then I repeated it and reinforced it. It's all I had. It's what I got. So it wasn't anything wrong with me, and it actually wasn't anything necessarily particularly wrong with my parents. I would have loved for them to do some of the work that I'm doing now earlier, so I wouldn't have to do this, but it is what it is, and they got what they had, which wasn't a ton, okay? Otherwise, they would have given it to me. Because we give what we have. That's just the truth. Unless we're willfully withholding, we give what we have. That's actually humanity and consciousness. We can't not do that. So if we're not giving somebody something, we're either intentionally withholding it, which we also withhold from ourselves then, because we're somebody. And when you withhold from everybody. So it's either that, or we just don't have it because we didn't get it, because the people who were supposed to give it to us didn't have it to give. Okay? So I just say that because blaming doesn't actually help. And a lot of counseling that I went, they would never call it blame, and will take down some of the raging patterns of the blame, but to still explain. It's just a level of awareness that where the people were functioning from that were supposed to be raising you, expectations that we had of them that we probably still do that aren't getting met. But it's time to let all of that go and just focus on you, because you're the one that is the apple of your eye. You're the one that you have control over, and the one that you have the greatest ability to impact and profoundly change their life. You. So let's do that for you, because you matter. If nobody else has ever said this to you, I am telling you now, you matter. Your life matters. Your happiness matters. And if you're very depleted, I know how bad it sucks. I also know that it will not last forever, especially the intensity with which you are feeling it right now is being heightened and exacerbated by multiple planets in retrograde, a new moon, and what was the other thing? An equinox, okay? That just has a portal opening, which a lot of energy pouring in, which is good, but also brings up a lot of old stuff. And it's intensifying for a reason. We're in an upgrade. We're being pressured so that we're getting compressed into the diamonds that we are. It's almost like this pressure is coming to reunite us and I don't know what the word is, like reseal us with our soul. We're going to reconnect with ourselves. Now, the ability and if it's going to happen is going to depend on a couple things. Number one, are you going to start? Or are we going to do the thing that a lot of us do, and I know this because I did this, we're going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about how tired I am, but I'm not actually going to shut up and go to bed. Okay, I'm going to talk about it, but I'm not actually going to do anything about it. Okay, that is in the Goddess's Guide to Breakup books that I wrote. I call that the pre-contemplation stage. It's not completely useless, but a lot of us are actually far enough where we could hold ourselves to a little bit higher standard and accountability and honesty and say it's actually time to do something, which is start. And with the starting is if we recognize that this is a trauma pattern and a lot of what is exhausting is that we're looping, this is good news, because all we got to do is insert a tiny little pattern interrupt. Tiny. Tiny. It's a breath. It's a millisecond. It's intentionally blinking your eyes. It's snapping your fingers. It's a no. That's not a nice thing to say to myself. Whatever it is, all you got to do is start with a pattern interrupt. That is enough to get the subconscious's attention. If you've seen the Matrix where they do the glitch where there'll be like that thing that does a double take, that pattern interrupt is going to get your subconscious to go like, wait, what? And then you have a chance to reset. That's where the second phase of work comes in. But with that, your action may be, I'm taking a nap. I'm taking a day off work. I'm going to bed early. All of these things that generally aren't allowed, and we think we're going to let everybody down if we do them, but the only person that we're killing with this is ourselves. And we worry too far in advance about things that are not written in stone. We act like they are. We talk like they are. Like we know everything. We'll be like, I know I don't know everything. I know I'm not perfect, but I do know this for sure. which you don't. It's bullshit. And, but then you're unwilling to do the one thing that could actually change that thing for certain, which is do something different in this moment. Okay, so let's just be honest with ourselves. Okay, just put that out there. So, pattern interrupt. That's all you got to do. Nothing gigantic. Just pattern interrupt. Now, when you're ready for a bigger step, take a bigger step, which might be a nap that lasts more than 20 seconds that happened on accident, behind the wheel or at your desk, okay? These things are scary, but that's the level that we're operating on right now. One that you take intentionally. Here's the next step. Without guilt. That you actually do it with freaking self-love attached to it. That it's not because you're weak and just can't possibly go on. It's because you're giving yourself a gift. And you're actually learning what it's like to be a giver and receiver at the same time. Do you see how all these things are actually sort of little steps, but they build on themselves? And they make a big difference. Because anyone who's ever been in a relationship with another human being knows that you don't just want somebody to do something for you. You want them to do it because they want to. Because if they do it because they have to, they end up resenting you and you're never satisfied. You want more. So if your kid actually picks up his socks like they were told, but they do it all huffy and puffy and like rolling their eyes, you still want to slap them. Mm-hmm. And if your partner gets you lunch and brings it to you, but absolutely didn't want to and very much lets you know that they went out of their way to do it and doesn't even smile at you when you do it, you end up feeling like shit. And you dislike them more even though they delivered what you asked for. The energy with which we deliver these things for ourselves matter. So it has to now start coming from self-love. We're doing a pattern interrupt and breaking these loops and cycles, not because there is anything wrong with us, not because we should, not because I'm going to be a better version of myself. It's because what's going on right now is actually driving me into the ground, and I'm so depleted that I actually don't know what else to do, so I'm going to surrender, and I'm actually going to try self-love on, just as an experiment. Or actually maybe you're finally getting that you're worth it. That living with this level of depletion and exhaustion isn't fun, it isn't lighting you up, and it actually isn't getting you what you really want and what you know you came here for. So when you're really, really depleted, you rest. And there's no gigantic thing or demonstration that you can do. We're going to create little pattern interrupts that are going to build on themselves. Because there is no singular gesture that's going to take away these decades of patterning in one fell swoop. I mean, miracles actually do exist, so it is within possibility, okay? Like, it's actually possible to have a miracle. I do want to put that out there because the trauma came for some of us in a singular moment, but it's been reinforced over so much time, which is kind of why it's taking time. I just want to put it out there that miracles are possible, but for most of us, the miracle actually is the willingness to love ourselves. That is miraculous. And from that, more miracles will flow, and there will be a time when we will see outward expressions of miracles. But for most of us, we are having to learn self-love. It's one of the things that we came here for, and it's cultivated, and that's why it's little steps at a time. We're actually creating new neural circuitry, and that, for absolute certain, did not get created in one fell swoop. It took 9 months in the womb to get us that far, and then we're still doing it now, okay? The first 2 months, and then the first several years of our lives, there's like this whole burgeoning, ballooning amount of neural wiring, but none of us got up and walked and walk then for the rest of our lives. It was get up, fall down, get up, stand, wobble, woo, and then fall down, and then little steps, and we got it, okay? That's what we're doing here. So let us all relax. It's going to happen. The intensity of the depletion is going to pass. These planets are not going to be in retrograde forever. We are actually going to learn to rest. And so we're actually going to be able to have some resources to move on. And then the speed with which we carry on from there is pretty much only determined by our level of resistance and how much we're willing to be curious rather than to clutch onto old identities. And absolutely insisting that we are who we are and that's who we're going to be forever and ever, that we can't give up certain people, places, things, or patterns, that a lot of us are going to be scared because we don't know who we're going to be if we do this thing that we've never done before. All of these things are normal. It's just a matter of how tightly we want to cling. And there is no rightness and wrongness to this. This is where coaching comes in. Because a lot of times, the things that we think we're doing wrong is just resistance. A lot of the things that we think are pain that are telling us we're on the wrong track is actually just an intensity of resistance that we're feeling. And so to have somebody who's gone through this, who can actually let you know what's going on with greater clarity, can also be a tremendous help to speeding up this process. Because for a lot of you, it sucks. And so let's get through this a little bit faster instead of making it take so freaking long and stubbing my toe on all the furniture because it's dark and I'm trying to find my way around, okay? Get somebody with a flashlight. Get somebody with a voice so you know that's going to help remind you why you're doing it and navigate through the dark. And it's going to turn light faster, okay? You will get there, no matter what. A coach is going to help get you there faster. But now you know that if you are feeling depleted, you are not alone. It is not an indication of your weakness. It is not in any way, shape, or form tied to your value or what you will be able to produce and offer in the future. It is only an indicator of how much energy it actually takes to live according to a lie, which is that your value is questionable, that it is determined by somebody else or some other outcome, that you are wrong, bad, flawed in some way. Any one of these things. Living according to that takes a lot of energy, and that is why we're depleted. Now we know all we got to do is create a teeny little pattern interrupt. Know that a lot of what we're doing is actually symptoms of this depletion, and so it's actually rest and love that's being called for. And if we can answer that call with rest and love, we are going to feel so much better, have such a different perspective on ourselves and our lives, and we're going to be much better able to respond instead of react and make movement in the direction of our goals instead of spinning and keeping ourselves in the same place and tripping. So much is possible for you here. And I love you so much. I know you're going to get through this. Please rest until you feel rested. And please call me for help, because this is what I do and this is what I love to do. I create really cool creative programs to help you get from stuck to happy as fuck in a short amount of time as possible. And I have done so many of these crazy experiments with what not to do that I really can recognize how subtle they are, so I can really help you avoid some of those pitfalls. And so I would love to be able to do that and offer that for you. That, my friends, is Power Hour. 60 plus minutes of material in 30 minutes. And I hope that it finds its way directly into your heart, into your soul, so that you know on so many levels that you are loved and you are cared for and held, and that you can also be the one who does that for you, and it counts, and you matter. I love you dearly. I actually think that by next Wednesday, the tone of Power Hour is going to be so different. And if it's not, that's okay, but I think it will be. So keep smiling. Rest until you feel rested. Call me and let me help. We'll have a call for clarity and see what help is best. And until then, have a great week, and I'll talk to you next Wednesday. Mwah.